Hi, I'm Lanny, and this is Preserving Today, a Greener Pastures project. Well, today I have some stale sourdough bread that I let sit too long, and I'm going to show you how I make breadcrumbs that will last in my pantry for at least a year. If you go through all the trouble to make a good sourdough loaf, you don't want to let any of it go to waste. And sometimes I overdo it because I want to practice my bread making, and we had a little more bread than we needed. So this loaf has been sitting around for about 2 weeks, but I do wrap it in a cloth towel. This helps draw moisture away from the loaf, preventing it from molding and instead letting it get stale. And stale bread is much easier to work with and make use of than a moldy loaf. So I'm going to very carefully cut this into about 1-inch size cubes and spread it out on a baking sheet. I have my oven preheated to 250 degrees and I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to set my timer for about 15 minutes. Okay, so after the bread has cooled, and I put it on this wire rack to cool quickly because I'm in a hurry here, I'm going to process this in my food processor. So just pulse the breadcrumbs and then continue to process until you see the consistency that you like your breadcrumbs. Go thicker if you want like a panko breadcrumbs, and smaller if you want like Italian style breadcrumbs. Now, as you can see here, while I'm processing these, the inside of my food processor is getting steamy, and that means I was being too rushed and I did not let these bread cubes cool down fully. If you see steam, that means moisture. Moisture plus oxygen plus some kind of food source inevitably will mean mold. So I cannot put these in my pantry to save them for a year unless I dry them out. So when I'm done processing, I spread these out onto a baking sheet and put them back into the 250 degree oven for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, I turned off the oven and cracked the door and just left them in there to cool in the oven with the door open so that they wouldn't create any steam. I would have saved myself the trouble of this extra step if I would have just walked away from the kitchen for a while and let those cubes cool fully. But I wanted to finish, and I wanted to finish the video, and here we are, making extra work for myself because I tried to skip a step. And that's how I learn. I try to make things more efficient. So I'm always trying different ways of doing things, but sometimes it just teaches me that there's a reason that I'm doing them the way I am. And those shortcuts don't always work. Once the breadcrumbs are fully cooled, and I mean fully cooled, I run my hands through them to make sure they're totally dry, and then I load them into my jar. I don't often use breadcrumbs, so I don't see myself using these anytime soon. My baby's not eating any grain yet, so I've been avoiding putting any kind of grain into family meals. So I wouldn't use this to make meatloaf or meatballs or anything. I would be doing grain-free versions of those. So that's it. That's how I turned my sourdough loaf that would have gone into the garbage or to the chickens into breadcrumbs that will last in my pantry for a year. Do you make breadcrumbs? Have any tips for me? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. I'm Lanny, and this was Preserving Today.